Hear us now. It was muted. Okay.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Water Service IT Department.
Tracy Rainey, Government Relations Manager for Clean Water Services.
Joe Gall, I'm the Chief Utility Relations Officer for Clean Water Services.
Got Richard Guest third, also with Clean Water Services.
And against community engagement. Water service.
Isaac Andrews, not the Clean Water Services. I'm the Deputy Director of Government Affairs for the Homeowner Association. WFE, Washington County Citizen Action Network.
Aging executive.
And let's go online. Ashley, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Ashley Farrell. I'm one of the business reps.
And Nisha.
Hi, this is Nisha George. I'm an at-large rep.
Chair Song, everyone's accounted for.
Great, thank you. Our first order of business tonight is nominating and confirming our budget committee members for 2026. Kathy, if you'll provide some background.
Yeah, the box is now a seat.
Oh,
Everybody. So Kathy Weir, I'm the CFO and Budget Officer for Clean Water Services. I'm going to talk a little bit today about recruitment for our budget committee coming up in the budget season. Okay. So Oregon budget law requires the district to establish a budget committee every year that listens and receives the budget message and approves, and it brings to the board a budget to adopt. The committee is made up of the elected officials of the district, along with an equal number of community representatives. We're kind of unusual at Clean Water Services where, so we have our 5 board members that are on the committee, but we pull all of our budget committee from CWAC. And of those people, they do a 3-year term on the committee, and those roles they stagger. So we have a few that come off each year, and they need to reside in Washington County or be in the Clean Water Services territory to qualify for the committee. This was the committee lineup this past year, and I think the committee did a great job. They asked a lot of really hard questions, gave a lot of direction related to where we went as we went into the budget hearing, and that included Elena Stewart, and her term just recently expired on the committee on 9/30. Ramesh, similarly, his term just expired. We have Andy that's on the committee for another year, 26, and Terry Song and Alan Jesse are on the committee through 2027 at this point. So that was the committee makeup for the past budget season. Just kind of giving an idea of the commitment and the timeline of the budget. So here we are today on October 8th, getting the nominations for the committee. Those nominations will go down to the board in a work session on October 21st for recommendation to appoint. Then the final appointment will happen by the board on their November 4th meeting. Then there's some time period in there from December to March where we're busily putting together our budget for the district. And we complete that proposed budget document and submit it out to the committee on April 17th as a plan for this year. We have on the calendar, kind of similar to last year, the budget committee meeting itself that would be held on May 8th. And then where there you would hear the budget message and you would approve a budget that would go to the board on June 16th for another public hearing where the budget would be adopted and appropriations made for the next year. So this kind of gives you a lineup for this next year's budget subcommittee. We have Andy, Terry, and Alan on the committee right now, and we have currently 2 vacant positions that are a 3-year term on them, so they would expire in 2028. And to kind of help in looking at the population of eligible people here at CWAC, we have a list of people that reside in Washington County and or the Clean Water Services rate area, and an idea of their term on CWAC. So looking for some nominations, 2 positions.
Should also note, we're doing this a little earlier than we typically do. We're moving up a lot of our processes to allow for a little bit more time for input, education, engagement. So this is Normally we'd be having this conversation in January.
Yeah, so a little early, which is exciting because it's good to have a plan set for the year.
This is okay to self-nominate.
Yes.
You
You know, I'll just say for the record, I don't mind being on it again.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it. I'm also happy to step out of the way and let somebody else have the experience.
I don't want to speak for Kathy, but I think we would love to have.
Oh, totally. Yes, definitely. Yeah, great experience. That's it. Yeah. Definitely.
Nominees need to be here at this meeting.
Yeah.
Do they need to accept today?
Well, we'd be agreeable that you would.
She has a hand up.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Nisha?
Hi, I was just wondering, is there extra meetings that happen for the budget subcommittee? And if so, when would those be? I'm happy to self-nominate. I just don't know what the time commitment is.
Currently, there is the one meeting for the budget committee meeting itself in May. There could be other meetings that are presented to the board during the year that might be of interest to somebody on the committee. Like, for instance, I know we have a cost of service study analysis that's going to be presented soon. And we have some rate development type work sessions with the board. So some of those might be of interest to somebody on the budget committee, but there's no really formal set other budget committee meeting.
May 8th is the.
May 8th is it.
Last year we had two.
Yeah, so yeah, we ended up having, we had a carryover from the initial budget committee meeting to a follow-up. We don't have that currently scheduled.
We also typically attend the public hearing.
So then, you're more than welcome to then also, usually the person who's the chair of the committee will attend the public hearing and just give an update to the board, the public.
Hey, Nisha, it's Elaine here. They send out the budget mid-April and it will come directly to you. There are typically 3 documents. One is more strategic plan, or what they call roadmaps, that you can look through to get familiar with the program, some of the objectives and kind of what the short and long-term goals are. Then there's the actual budget itself. And then there's typically a 3rd document, which seems to vary a lot in size, but it's the capital improvement plan. And that has a lot of detail about all the capital projects planned. And I'm trying to remember, was it so big because it was a 5-year CIP one year, and then it was smaller last year?
Was it smaller last year? Actually, I can't believe it, because I think we even added more information into the document in the past couple of years. It might have been 2-sided in one year versus. I'm not sure.
It also could just be me getting used to looking at it. It didn't seem so onerous, but you'll have several weeks to kind of look at those items, prepare any questions. And then there's 1 or 2 meetings with the Board of Commissioners.
Awesome. Thanks for that info. And then my last question is, what time of day on the 8th?
Starts at 9 and ends like 9 to 4-ish.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to self-nominate.
So nominations.
Thank you. Any other we have a motion to nominate Elaine and Nisha for 2 budget seats. We have a second.
Second.
Vote on the nominations. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes. Congratulations, Elaine and Nisha. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, both of you.
Next up on the agenda is Tracy Rainey, Government Relations Manager with CWS, and she is here to give an update on the Scoggins Dam Safety Project. This is for information.
Thank you. It's good to see you all again. And as already noted, I'm Tracy Rainey, Government Relations Manager for Clean Water Services, and appreciate this opportunity to provide an update on Scoggins Dam. I think it's been, gosh, just over a year maybe since we last presented to CWAC, and there's been a lot of updates for this past year plus since we last talked to many of you. Tonight, I'll be providing an overview of the Tualatin project, more commonly known as Scoggins Dam or Hag Lake. I want to make sure we provide that background, especially for those that are new to the conversation, make sure that we're all up to speed on what that project entails. We're going to talk through the history of the Tualatin Joint Project. So when we say Joint Project, we're talking about project that is looking to seismically modify Scoggins Dam, but also looking at expanding storage, so stored water capacity at the facility. We will also talk about what's been happening with what we refer to as the Safety of Dams Project. So the project that looks to only seismically modify the existing dam. We'll talk about the local beneficiary response to some of the more recent updates, and then we'll have some time for questions and discussion. And I will jump to avoid any surprises or sudden turns in this presentation. I will just kind of start with letting you know that in May of this past year, we had a meeting with the Bureau of Reclamation, where they informed us that they were going to be taking a different approach to addressing the seismic vulnerabilities of the facility, and looking at really a scaled back seismic project due to really the primary factor being how expensive the prior Safety of Dams project was getting. So we'll get into the detail there, but as we're going through this, I want to make sure that I kind of know where this is all leading, which is that there's a pretty big update in terms of the project and how they're approaching it. Okay. All right, so the history here, which is always, I think, kind of interesting and fun. So the project was initially authorized by Congress in 1966. At the time that it was authorized, they also included $20.9 million for the construction of the project. So when we talk about Tualatin project, that's what you'll see in that authorizing legislation back from the 60s. And it includes not just Scoggins Dam or the lake that results from that dam, but it includes several pump stations, booster pumping plants, and a pipe lateral distribution system for irrigation. When the project was authorized, you'll see on the slide the variety of project purposes that were included in the legislation: irrigation, municipal, industrial, flood control, recreation, conservation of fish and wildlife resources. Water quality protection was not included in the initial authorizing legislation. It was actually added after the fact several years later, just kind of right as the project was starting construction. And was the result of, if you'll recall kind of the history of Clean Water Services, we were facing a building moratorium here in Washington County because of pollution issues in the Tualatin River. And so part of what lifted that building moratorium and allowed for additional development in the county was that we were able to access stored water for water quality. So increasing the flows, pollution abatement. The local repayment partners for the project include Tualatin Valley Irrigation District, drinking water providers, which are the cities of Beaverton, Hillsborough, and Forest Grove, obviously Clean Water Services for our water quality water, and then there's a little bit of water there that's held for Lake Oswego Water Corporation. Talk about that in a moment. Any questions? I think we can also pause along the way if there's any questions. Okay, so in terms of the stored water behind the dam, it stores approximately 54,000 acre feet of water. When we talk about an acre foot of water, we're talking about a foot of water that would cover an acre of land. So just give a little bit of context. It's a lot of water. Hopefully many of you have gone up to the facility, and if you haven't, highly recommend, and I'm sure we'd be happy to do a tour at some point. Drinking water has about 25% of the stored water. Again, we already talked about the cities of Hillsborough, Forest Grove, and Beaverton. Accessing that stored water is a portion of their water supply. That's not their sole water supply, especially now that they're moving to use the Willamette River, Willamette water supply system. That will also be a significant portion of water supply for them. It provides irrigated agriculture, so about 17,500 acres that are authorized for irrigation through that stored water. They've got about half of the water that's available for their use. And then water quality releases, of course, clean water services. Really, we have changed the nature of what we're using that water for. We have moved to a lot of advanced treatment at our water resource recovery facilities. So technology we have at those facilities, it's really getting us a long way towards our permit compliance. Temperature for us is tricky. So having that flow for us is important in terms of thermal management. Obviously, it's not the only way that we are meeting our thermal management compliance obligations. We're relying a lot on reuse, on riparian shading is another big one as well, but that stored water is important for thermal compliance. And so we've got approximately 25% of the stored water, just a little bit less than the drinking water providers too. Additional benefits, of course, provided by the facility, flood control for the 50-year storm event, and then economic development as well. As you know, that municipal and industrial water does provide water for many of the industries within the region. So when we talk about, again, the history of the Tualatin Joint Project, and when I say the Joint Project, again, I'm talking about efforts to seismically modify the dam and also potentially looking at expanding storage at the facility, so more stored water. Those conversations really date back to the 1990s. At the time, the variety of interest within the region, we're talking about kind of that next 50 years plus of water supply. Looking ahead, trying to figure out where that water supply would come from. There was an integrated water resource management strategy that was done in the late 1990s. Through some of those efforts and kind of leading into the early 2000s, really started to focus in on the potential of expanding stored water at the facility. So a lot of those efforts were kind of, well, we're not going to go into the weeds of all of this, but we're going to kind of skip ahead to 2008. The Bureau of Reclamation started doing evaluation of seismic risks at the facility. It was determined once they went through that process that Scoggins was one of the most seismically threatened dams in the inventory of Bureau of Reclamation's dams, which I think is about over 400. I'll look to Shannon on that number, but one of the most seismically threatened. And really, this is an earth and fill dam. It's 151 feet across, and it's an earth fill structure. And so really the concern there is that if that dam starts to slump in an earthquake, the spillways we'll talk about in a little bit is also very seismically vulnerable, and kind of creates that perfect storm, especially when now we know what we know about the Cascadian subduction zone. So all of that conversation was happening right around that 2008 to 2012 timeframe. And what it led to then was talk about a joint project. So again, when we talk about that joint project, working with our federal delegation to get authorization to pursue both seismic modifications to the facility and also be able to explore that future water supply through expanded storage. In 2020, there was joint project feasibility design work that was completed, looking at the variety of options. So doing a seismic only project, doing a dam raise, and then doing a downstream dam, which would have been pretty significant expansion of the facility. All of those options were found to be technically feasible. Certainly different price tags associated with the various options. In 2014 to 2016, as I kind of mentioned already, the drinking water providers pursued seismically resilient water supply option through the Willamette River Water Supply Project. And so they, looking at their kind of next future increment of water, were no longer interested in expanded storage at the dam. So really the only partner that was looking at expanded storage at that time was Clean Water Services. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of the price tag associated with that, but really any of the price point that was over a dam safety seismic only project would have been our obligation financially. And then in 2021, the decision was made to advance the seismic cooling project, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. So in 2021, there were a number of things that kind of came into focus for us. So I don't even know that we talked about this, whether decision is the right word to use here. I think that we more agreed that it was the right and appropriate thing to forego expanded storage and to pursue the seismic cooling project. Really, that was a result of a few things, but the cost obviously being one. I'll go back to this public safety piece in a moment. It was $750 million at the time for the dam safety only project. Projects under the Bureau of Reclamation's Dam Safety Program have an 85%, 15% cost share. 85 is federal, 15% local. For the expanded storage, it was going to be over $1 billion at that time. We knew that that price tag would only grow. Also in 2021, as you'll recall, there was Congress passed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That had additional funding in it for the Bureau of Reclamation's Dam Safety Program and really allowed the Bureau of Reclamation to accelerate the work they're doing to seismically modify any vulnerable facilities. Also, right around that time, that year prior, there was some additional thermal modeling done for the district that took a look at what we need in terms of thermal compliance. And it found that additional stored water alone is not going to really be enough for us to get kind of our bang for our buck in terms of thermal compliance. So really pointing more towards riparian shading again, optimizing our operations, reuse, expansion of reuse is going to be really big for that compliance going forward. So we're looking at pretty significant investment of money, not getting really a lot of compliance for our permit out of that and having other options that would be more feasible. In addition, we have Bureau of Reclamation saying we can move forward on this project soon if you'd like to. Whereas before we were kind of in a very slow process with the federal government. We weren't going to see that investment for many, many years. So we had time to look at these other options, but they were really saying, are you ready? You know, we've got this additional funding for the dam safety work. Do you want to move forward? And knowing the vulnerability of this facility, for us, it was an obvious answer. Yes, let's fix the dam, protect public safety, protect our water supply. So when we talk about the dam safety modification project, what that includes, and I am not a technical person, not an engineer, as you all know. This is really what the proposed project was. So backfilling kind of portions of you'll see the crusher and existing embankment, really just kind of adding that reinforcement from the dam. So that is, I don't know, any questions on that? I'm hoping really not. Yeah, it's beyond my ability. But so as we moved into the dam safety project, it's important to know that the project became a federal project. So this is no longer a joint project. This was Bureau of Reclamation's project. And we are just project beneficiary. So we are a repayment partner, and we agreed to be a cooperating agency. Also shifted public engagement to the Bureau of Reclamation, which Shannon's back there and can talk about that. The Clean Water Services had a very active role in engaging with the public, informing them of project updates. There was a barbecue every year. It was before my time up at the facility to make sure everyone was aware of what was happening with the project. That is now shifted over to a federal role, which is really tricky. We still have people still contact us asking for updates on the project, and it's really no longer our project. It's not a joint project. In 2024, there was a project cost update for the dam safety only project of $900 million. So that was up from the prior $700 million. You'll see that these numbers continue to increase as time goes on. They also started beginning to do work to update what is known as the economic benefit and repayment analysis. That is something we talked to CWAC about previously, and that is really Bureau of Reclamation looking at what are the benefits associated with this project. How do you value that? How do you make that justification to the Office of Management and Budget in DC to make sure that they are thinking this is a good investment? And also, how do you value the stored water for all the different local project beneficiaries? So what is the value of drinking water from this facility? What's the value of irrigation water? What's the value of water for water quality? There have been a prior analysis done in 2020 that did not do a great job of valuing the water quality water. It had it valued at 2 times that of drinking water. So we were going to be paying close to half of that local share, that 15%. Our concern was really, it used some information, some data, and some flawed assumptions that really did not reflect how we use the water in the region. We are the only facility, or I should say, there is only one facility, and it's Scoggins Dam, that has water quality as a project purpose. So Bureau of Reclamation, as they're doing these analysis and economic work, doesn't have any blueprint for how to deal with this, how to value our water. So we were concerned with that analysis in 2020 and definitely engaging with them in 2023 to 24 to make sure they updated some of those assumptions and made some corrections. At this time, when the decision was kind of made that we were going to pursue this project, shortly after they released a timeline for when they'd release the environmental impact statement, and when they would start construction. So that was supposed to be 2029 and completion would be 2035. So that was the world that we were living in up until May of this past year. We had a meeting that was pretty suddenly called by Bureau of Reclamation, and did not actually know going into it exactly what that update was going to be. They informed us that the new project cost estimates for the dam safety project were over $1 billion. I think we were shocked to hear that because we'd seen the price tag climbing. They let us know that they had determined that they needed to pause further work on the dam safety only project. That was due to their economic analysis of non-structural alternatives. And when I say non-structural alternatives, what they're talking about is a reservoir restriction. So reducing the amount of water stored behind the dam as a means for reducing the seismic threat. Less water, less impact, and I think less pressure on the spillway if there is a seismic event. Obviously, that is not a great alternative for any of those that rely on stored water in the basin. But the estimated project costs associated with the reservoir restriction were at $362 million. So again, we've got Bureau of Reclamation needing to justify this expense of federal dollars in DC with the Office of Management and Budget, and feeling that pressure that this price tag had really grown over time to over $1 billion, and whether they could justify that when compared to other options like a reservoir restriction. The good news is that Bureau of Reclamation did indicate to us that they would pursue a scaled back version of the dam safety project. So looking at reinforcing the most vulnerable aspects of the facility. So the spillway, as I mentioned earlier, being one of those most vulnerable aspects, and some amount of adjacent embankment work as well. So that is kind of the new plan that they laid out in front of us. I think that the big fingers crossed aspect of this is what we really hope, and I think Bureau of Reclamation helps as well, is that that will come in as at a price tag that is lower than that reservoir restriction. So in terms of local project beneficiary response, I think that it was safe to say that there was a concern starting to grow amongst the local project beneficiaries of drinking water irrigation, clean water services as well, that the price tag was getting pretty considerable for this project. 15% of $1 billion, knowing that we weren't going to start construction until 2029, we knew that price tag was going to grow, continue to increase. We are, of course, not surprisingly, very much opposed to reservoir restriction. Very much on the local project. Partners in the region agree on that. And if we do feel like that reservoir restriction gains momentum or feels like it really is kind of coming into focus as a reality, we would see a very, very significant response and reaction from the region. Right now, we don't think that we're at that point where we need to hit the panic button. We are very much encouraging Reclamation to continue their pursuit of the seismic project. We have questions. We're working with our federal delegation. We want to make sure that when the public says, okay, so will this be able to withstand a Cascadia subduction zone event? We want to be able to very confidently say yes. I can pause there before we talk and go back to this piece on economic analysis. Yes.
So Tracy, Clean Water has been really doing releases from Hag Lake for many years for thermal management. I'm guessing, looking at the price tag of a reservoir restriction, that must be a pretty substantial reduction in water storage. I did see in a bullet on your previous slide that if they get real serious about a reservoir restriction, they're gonna have to do some pretty robust analyses because that thermal management is critical for steelhead. And it's gonna be a very big problem if Clean Water is not able to provide sufficient water in the Tualatin, and it's not just our problem. Bureau of Rec and OMB are gonna have issues with Fish and Wildlife Service.
Yeah, I fully agree. Appreciate that comment. Because yeah, I think there's going to be a variety of pieces. And again, if we end up in that place where we're hitting the panic button, we will absolutely be pushing that. I think that $360 million number is too low. I don't think that they have probably accurately captured recreational values to the extent that they are there for all events that they host. As an example, hotel nights associated with events that they're hosting around the lake and reservoir. And certainly if we would be taking a look at, we've had initial conversations with some of our technical staff, is you've got less water in that dam that's being stored, it may get warmer, right? So it's not as deep then. And what would that impact look like in terms of on fish, and do they need to go through different channels to look at that impact? So that'd be a lot. Panic button would be a big one, a lot of ways. So just a kind of talk through where we're at with the project. I'm going to quickly kind of go back. We talked about the economic repayment analysis that was done in 2020, and that was the presentation that we provided CWAC last year, I think in maybe June, 2024. Time flies. Spend some time. So again, this is that work that Bureau of Reclamation does to determine how much, well, two things. Again, the value of that stored water for justifying the project, and then the value associated with the water for all the different project beneficiaries. So uses like drinking water, irrigation, water quality. The last one that had been done was in 2020. As I mentioned, we had some pretty significant concerns with the assumptions that were used. When we looked at some of the data and the studies, they just did not reflect how we use water in this basin. It also appeared, and we had the conversation with you all, and I know like you'll remember because you sent me very helpful follow-up information, that they included fish and wildlife benefits in their calculation of water quality water. So in this analysis, they took a look at recreational benefits and assigned a number, for example. That's one of their non-reimbursable uses of stored water. So that means it's a federal obligation. There's no local person to assign to that recreational benefit. Fish and wildlife is non-reimbursable. That is something the federal government is supposed to be responsible for. In the analysis from 2020, it said, we assume that it's covered by the water quality one. So they never assigned any value associated with fish and wildlife. So we had a lot of conversations with them to make sure they understood what we're doing in terms of when we talk about water quality, we're talking about Clean Water Act, talking about permit obligation. And what does that permit say? And how do we meet the requirements of a permit? And I think that was very helpful, those conversations with them. What we were really saying is, that fish and wildlife piece is super valuable, but that's a broader benefit that is not just a benefit to clean water services. And so we were asking them to kind of pull those two pieces apart. And then we can take a look at whether there's some kind of credit. We don't disagree that we do have positive impacts on fish and wildlife. But really making sure that those two pieces weren't just getting lumped in together. So we had a number of conversations with their new economist that they had hired on. That was really in fall of 2023, going through winter of 2024. As I mentioned, what we were really looking to do is just draw that line between fish and wildlife and water quality. And then looking to have that number to talk to our federal delegation to see if they would be able to figure out some way to give some credit off of the amount that we were required to pay. I think for us, it was really important too, because the precedent setting of valuing water quality waters, of water staying in the river as being 2 times that of, let's say, drinking water, is then becomes a precedent, right? It becomes something that's used in other economic analyses going forward. So we were really concerned about that. So in March of 2025, and had a little bit more of a surprise meeting with the Bureau of Reclamation. We weren't expecting them to share new assumptions in a revised economic analysis approach, but they did. And in that, they didn't really grab onto the things I think that we were saying, which is, you know, again, understanding that permit obligation piece. What they said is, we just think the water for water quality should be valued similarly to the municipal and industrial, like i.e. the drinking water is pretty similar to the water. They spent a lot of time kind of diving into the drinking water assumptions, the irrigation assumptions, and then it felt, I think, like they didn't spend a ton of time on our assumptions, just said it's similar to drinking water. And as a result, that did shift those numbers. And again, what we're talking about with these numbers is 15% of the total project cost that is split amongst the partners. So you'll see there, and I included kind of this, the blue and the green here, because at the time when they presented this in March, we were still assuming that this bigger dam safety project was happening. The over $1 billion project was happening. And so that was the assumption. Certainly has a bigger impact when you're talking about these allocations than at that point. And so when they presented these revised numbers, it's reflecting both the shift in how they were valuing our water, but it's also included increased project cost. So like sticker shock wise for people, you kind of have both those pieces there. So you'll see just that breakdown, in the regional 2020, we were at 53.6 million as our share. And then in that revised analysis that they were sharing in March, we would have been at 58.9. So just a very small increase considering the project cost and increased quite a bit. Really for drinking water, that shifted a lot more than because our amount had kind of decreased down to reflect similar values as their water. Yeah.
Quick question. The Willamette Water Supply Project is another big expenditure by partners.
Yes.
Is it TBID, Joint Water Commission, or both of them that are shouldering that?
Big question. I know that TBID no, not TBID, but in 12 Valley Water District.
The Water District, yes,
is
not
a
the
part
irrigation.
of that. Hillsborough is a part of that. Yeah, I can look and clarify exactly who it is, but I know those two are part of that.
Yeah,
So yeah, John's back there, not me, so. Yes, but no irrigation water in that. So included in the green, just hopefully it's helpful. That's what the increase would have looked like if it was just based on. So if all things had stayed the same and our percentage that's on that left side of the screen was the same, we would have jumped to 79.8 million just based off the increased project cost alone. So that's what that green box is kind of showing. Any questions? Okay. So last slide, I think we're here. I think we're there. So again, just to reiterate our position, we would oppose any proposed reservoir restriction. Surprising. And as a result, we are supporting Reclamation's efforts to advance structural modifications. again, it's going to be really important that we understand that the project will be able to provide adequate resilience for cascading sediment. So that's going to be a really important conversation that we'll be having with Bureau of Reclamation. So the questions we have are, again, do you have any concerns with the proposed position or approach? And if there's any additional information that would be helpful for you all to feel up to speed as we move forward with this. There's going to be a lot of conversation about this in the next year.
I think you had mentioned it, but CWAC provided really helpful direction the last time Tracy presented Scoggins, and it helped precipitate the conversations that we had with the Bureau of Reclamation around how they had valued.
Really, what I will say on that piece strategically, that was a really tough one because we know that with this, when you take 15% of a certain number and you've got to divvy it up, if our share goes down, one of our partners will go up. And that's really a tough dynamic locally. So we were really hoping in our approach that we would be able to, again, take a look at what is that water quality obligation. What's the value of that? And then what's the value of that fish and wildlife water? And see if we could get maybe federal back for that. So with the irrigation water, one thing to note, there's an ability to pay calculation that Bureau of Reclamation does. So they calculate the value of their water, but then they also calculate an ability to pay. So when the project was built, you know, I was looking at the numbers and I don't know them off the top of my head, but they were assigned a value, a number of what was their share, but then there was revenues that come from power generation at other reclamation facilities and contracts they have for municipal and industrial water that they use to kind of help provide assistance to make that number more realistic, viable for them. And we don't know yet what that ability to pay calculation is for irrigation rules, but it's tricky. We want to make sure that we're not, you know, causing challenges for our partners in the basin. So we know there's some big conversations to have, make sure that we know what everyone needs out of this and we know where everyone's kind of pressure points are. Yes.
So, I agree with the opposition to any reservoir restriction. I think it's just too important. One of the things, I don't know about the other members of the committee, but I would appreciate if there's something that comes up that is a release of a document or any kind of event related to this happening, I would appreciate an email blast to just say, hey, this is what's going on now, just to keep my finger on the pulse.
Oh, sorry.
That's good.
I'm curious, were there any other proposed positions or approaches that were legitimately available to consider that CWS actually thought about taking? This seems pretty easily calculated and supported, but was there a 1A or 1B or an option 2 to pursue that the leadership or the agency considered? I'm not imagining any, but I guess it begs the question.
Yeah, just to clarify, in lieu of the dam safety project or?
Right, in lieu of the CWS position.
Yes, yeah.
Was there a second or third position that was considered that y'all decided, no, we don't think this is the right approach?
That's a really good question. And I honestly, in a lot of ways, don't feel like there's a ton of great ones on the table. And so no, I think the answer to that would be no, that at this point, it feels a little like it's, you know, do you want a structural solution that gives you seismic resilience, or you want to look at this reservoir restriction? And that really does feel like the two options that the Bureau of Reclamation, I think, has put in front of us based off of, I think, factors that they don't control necessarily. Well, yeah, let's, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, when you're working with the federal government, sometimes only have so many options, and we kind of got an A or a B. There have been many different approaches that have been considered over the years, which is part of what Tracy ran through. So this project could have looked, you know, a dozen different ways. And as it is starting to get real, right, the last time we came to talk to you, it sounded like we were gonna break ground in 2029. Which is frankly no time at all in sort of the federal time span. And so now we're really honing in and don't have a ton of choice. So we're for Oregon, don't necessarily have leverage in this. The other locations.
I'll say that the Bureau of Reclamation has indicated that they believe they can make up for lost time because a lot of the work that they were doing can be utilized for this kind of modified, scaled back version of the project. So they didn't think that we necessarily were going to lose time. So we're waiting to kind of, I think, hear, and so it's a little quiet now with, we don't know how many of them are actually working currently under the federal shutdown, but and we've contracted with a former solicitor for Bureau of Reclamation that we have on a retainer. Who's been incredibly helpful to be able to help navigate Bureau of Reclamation and just having conversations, trying to get information about what's coming, what to expect is tricky conversations when it's the federal government. And there's just a lot of moving parts right now, especially they are going through a lot of change. So I'm not certain, but there was talking that they were going to have to close down their Boise office. I don't think that that's happening anymore, but they've gone through a lot of transition as well. So we are trying to be patient and realistic in light of staffing changes and
Different pieces of information. Reclamation is currently furloughing 25% of its workforce during the shutdown. And to the question about the Willamette Water Supply Project, it's jointly implemented by the 12 Valley Water District and the state of Hillsborough. Team effort.
Yeah, there you go.
We have a body of researchers providing.
Sir, what comments? Okay, we'll just reiterate, we're not hitting the panic button. We're hoping that we've got a path forward. Provide protection for this facility. Great.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you very much.
Next up, our last presentation, I'd like to invite John Getz, the Water Engineering and Technology Department, presenting the Want from Waste, developing a composting program at CWS. This is for the mission's information. Thank you.
So got my name right too. How about that? First time. Yeah. That doesn't usually happen. So
What rhymes with yes?
there you go. Yeah. Hey, thanks. Nice to like see everybody first time presenting in front of CWAC. So thank you for inviting me here. Just jump right in and we're gonna use the clicker to make it happen. Okay, cool. So yeah, hopefully we can get everybody out of here on. Hold your questions till the end if you don't mind, and then we'll reserve some time for question, discussion, whatever y'all want to talk about. So here we are at Clean Water Services. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was 11 years for me here. I've been in multiple different departments. I'm now in our resource recovery division within our research and innovation department. And this is one of the potential projects that we're exploring as part of creating a better system to utilize the nutrients and other materials that are coming out of our treatment plants that are currently being treated like waste product, and how can we transform those into creating beneficial products and commodities for our region here. So the opportunity here, right, is, or what we're doing right now is putting a lot of this organic material into landfills or other locations that has an economic burden on us, costs a lot of money to transport these materials around, and has an environmental impact on us locally, as well as in the areas where we're putting materials into landfills. I'll get into what the materials are here shortly, but what we're looking to do here and coming to y'all to talk about is prioritizing funding and staffing resources for the development of a composting program at CWS to divert those organic wastes away from landfills, transform them into a usable product. And it's in keeping with a lot of how we operate with our mission, vision, mission values, right? This is guided by science. It's a dedication to the community to create a sustainable initiative here. And it's part of our whole environmental stewardship ethic that we employ here. Awesome. So if you've ever walked around in the woods or have like left a pile of leaves somewhere, you know what composting is, right? This is happening in nature everywhere, all around us. What I'm talking about here is nothing new. Right? What we're talking about here is emulating or taking advantage of natural processes to break down organic materials, yard waste, wood waste. It says food scraps up here because you can compost food scraps. We are not proposing to get into composting food waste that directly competes with private businesses, and it's not something that we're looking into at this point. But we do have biodegradable substances that can be transformed into nutrient-rich soil amendments through a composting process. Some of the benefits, right? It's in keeping with our commitment to resource recovery at the district. I've said a couple of times now, composting turns what we have currently considered as a waste product into something that can benefit soil health and our local ecosystems and as a whole. By diverting materials towards something that creates a positive outcome, that means there's less materials going to a landfill. It costs money to put things in a landfill. There's an environmental cost, and that material that goes into the landfill is consistently and constantly emitting methane, which is a harmful greenhouse gas. There is the massive quantity of fossil fuels that must be burned in order to truck this material around. There are a lot of impacts from moving materials around instead of keeping them local and transforming them. We can foster a lot of community support by partnering with our local residents, businesses, other municipalities to collect and incorporate their waste materials into this. For example, cities around here have a lot of leaves that they have to deal with on an annual basis. And a lot of that, which is like gold, is people are paying to dispose of this material that we could otherwise transform into something that creates benefits. And through doing so, there is an opportunity to generate revenue, certainly opportunities to realize cost reductions for our operating expenses. By sell finished compost to residents, landscapers. One of the opportunities is to use the finished compost on our own facility landscapings, at our treatment plants, pump stations, etc., where we currently we pay to import a lot of compost from various producers in the region. We could make our own material, and instead of driving that around and putting it into the landfills and then importing organics to improve the landscaping around our facilities, we can make our own material there, saving money in multiple directions. So what are we doing now? What's our current state of affairs? I think it's kind of interesting to go over this because of the way that we're processing and handling materials right now. No offense to the engineers in the room or online, but we're focusing on very linear processes for a lot of these things that are actually circular and connected to each other in nature. Some of y'all might not know that we have a street sweeping program and that we collect leaves around this time of year from the community. And that we are responsible for managing thousands of water quality facilities all over the Tualatin Basin as part of our MS4 permit. All of that is generating organic materials. All of those three areas, street sweepings, water quality facilities, and leaf disposal programs, are all being managed in a linear process of machines grabbing them. In this example here, we've got street sweepers picking up material from residential neighborhoods, which is mostly sticks and branches and leaves, some sand and grit that comes off the road. It goes to a processing facility, it gets processed, it's separated the trash from the organic material. The garbage goes to a landfill, the other material gets tested, then it gets put into a truck. And that stuff gets driven over mostly to Eastern Oregon and deposited into landfills. We've been doing this for a long time. I'm not saying this to be like critical of anybody who has been a part of this, just explaining to you what we're doing right now to communicate what are the opportunities for change and improvements in the future. So, and we're using the Hillsborough landfill. We have some arrangements with Recology Organics. We also work with some private agricultural operators to take some of the leaves, but a lot of this material is going to Wasco County landfill. This is not going to be very easy for some people to see, but y'all can download this and take a look at it. There's also a PDF document that has this and more information in it. The point of this here is to show you the number of trucks that we are putting on the road to move all of this material around. Each one of those truck icons up there represents 10 dump trucks. It's about 475 trucks annually that we're putting on the road to move these materials around to an estimated annual cost of about $180,000. We need to refine those numbers, and part of this pilot project is to get a more accurate accounting of the finances, what this costs, what we might be able to do differently. Some other interesting things on here for those that are interested. We're managing about almost 5,000 cubic yards of material between the street sweepings, the water quality facilities, and the leaf collection program. And using some calculations, that's, it's almost 1,200 tons of organic material annually that we're processing just from those three programs. And the future state, right? So that's what we've been doing. That's where we're at right now. So let's start thinking about what are some cool solutions. Where could we be in the future? This is a fun diagram. It kind of takes a little bit to settle in, but this is really what we could move towards. Instead of managing things linearly, we can acknowledge that in nature, these things of organic materials, water, plants, wildlife, everything is connected and circular in nature. There is no waste in nature. Everything is repurposed, reborn, recycled, reused. So all we have to do is essentially emulate some of these natural processes, right? This all started from discussions around we need to expand our recycled water program and our use of recycled water. And it very quickly became evident that just using recycled water expands into all kinds of other opportunity areas that touches every department within CWS and multiple external public organizations, which is really fun and interesting. So just as for instance of how we might connect using recycled water to maintain compliance with our thermal requirements and our permit can be shown on this diagram where we that laser pointer doesn't show up on the screen. Maybe you can see the cursor. No, it doesn't work either. So we're going to start here with recycled water. We can land apply recycled water on the farm fields that we own or that we're working with other people. We can harvest, we can irrigate cover crops or other crops on that land. We can harvest that material that goes into a compost product along with street sweepings, leaf collection and other materials from the water quality facilities. So we can utilize the plants from these agricultural operations to uptake some of the constituents from the recycled water and then move that over into our composting program, create benefits, right? One of the other really cool things, and then an idea I pitched to the sustainability director, Jenna Garman at Metro recently was, hey, what do you do with all the poop from the animals at the zoo? And they said, well, we have a compost facility at the zoo. I said, where does it all go? They got 50 yards of material and everything on to get rid of from the herbivores at the zoo. And I said, why don't you start bringing that composted manure to us, working out the details of this. This is one aspect of how all these things are connected. Start bringing us this composted product. We'll land apply that on some of the land that we own. We will then plant lines of plants into that improved soils, irrigate that with Class A recycled water from the treatment plant, and we will grow plants that you people from the zoo can come and harvest and feed to the animals for them to poop out and create more compost, bring it to us, and the cycle goes around and around. They were just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So that's what I mean about thinking about the interconnectedness of like our different departments, our partner agencies, and how we can create this bionutrient circular economy here locally, like just applying some modifications to some of the great work that we're doing. Something else to point out that's really cool, little biochar loop on the bottom here. Biochar is a product that can be made from biosolids or other organic material, and it's made in the presence of high temperature, high pressure, almost zero oxygen environment, and it crystallizes everything. So you're basically left with the carbon structure of whatever the organic material is that goes in. And those machines actually produce electricity that can then be used for powering other parts of the treatment plant or themselves. Biochar is like this magical solution that can be used for long-term carbon sequestration, improving soil conditions, filtering stormwater, managing odors. It's something that we can do and make, and it's also something that could be part of this composting program. One of the potential benefits of making biochar is that there's also the obliteration of microplastics and some of the other contaminants that we can remove through the treatment plant processes. Making biochar from these organic materials can be very helpful in that regard. Right, skip that. Okay, cool. So keeping with the theme of like, where are we going? What might we be able to do in the future? Is that, thinking about the sustainable waste management and what do we need to do in order to get there? It's a couple things on this slide that we know we need to do, and it's further contaminant testing and close coordination with Oregon DEQ to expand the uses of the potential composted product that we can create here. Right now, we have the beneficial use determination of BUD that allows us to do certain things with the street sweepings. There are places where we can use it now, but we would like to expand those uses so that it's safer and we have a wider array of opportunity areas for utilizing this material once it's finished and complete. And we would, because we're talking about a lot of material, we would need a composting facility permit. There are specific thresholds for the amount of material that you have and how long you have it around that dictate levels of permitting. We would be managing, or we could be managing thousands upon thousands of yards of material annually. Definitely, a dedicated composting facility that's permitted and vetted through processes with primarily, I believe, with Oregon DEQ. And through this, what we could also start looking at, again, an eye for the future. I'm not saying all or nothing here, but we could start working towards incorporating biosolids into our composting process here. Biosolids is another material we haven't talked about. I'm not going to talk about it a lot here, but if you all want to learn more, we can certainly provide you with additional information. We are trucking thousands of tons of biosolids from here over to Eastern Oregon, land applying that on farms and ranches, exporting a lot of macro and micronutrients that could be used. Some portion of that material could be composted and used locally to create the same benefits that the farmers that are receiving that are realizing on their land and for their productivity. So we got a pilot project, and we're working towards validating the proof of the concept here, right? We've got a lot of work to do still, but this past spring, we started gathering our resources and figuring out who internally is responsible for what. We divided roles and responsibilities and designated a final place for this pilot step. We have temporarily stored material at our Springer facility, which is offered by the Hillsborough Airport. But what we've decided to do is move the pilot study out to the Forest Grove, to the water resource recovery facility there, because we could then have everything in one location behind the fence, much safer, more secure location for being able to do this, do all of the sorting of the material and creating a pile, which we did this past spring. We diverted a massive quantity of material away from the landfill into this composting pile. And what we've been doing over the course of the summer and up until now is following our monitoring, taking cores out of them, sending it to the lab to be tested, maintaining the pile, turning the pile, adding nitrogen when we need to, monitoring the temperatures, tracking the nutrients, and the changes in the contaminants that are in the material, right? Everything has to go somewhere, right? And so there's, now we're at the point where we have a nice big pile of material that we successfully composted that our landscaping team wants to use for to meet their needs of bringing in compost and other soil amendments. We're primarily out at Forest Grove, where we're doing a large construction project right now to add capacity to the treatment plant. So we have an internal user for all of this material that would otherwise be spending thousands of dollars on importing compost, finding what they need to be successful in their teams. And I think I've already mentioned it, but we have representatives from field operations, our lab, resource recovery, natural systems department. There's a lot of different departments that are involved with this. And these are the goals that we've laid out as we're trying to meet as part of this pilot project, right? We're analyzing the breakdown of the CWS sourced materials, the street sweepings, the leaf collection, and the water quality facility, sticks, branches, and logs that come out of the maintenance activities there. We're monitoring the contaminant levels so that we can see how close we can get to what's called a clean fill. Very specific thresholds for contaminant levels, and we're monitoring a lot of things there. And then, this is part of increasing the community engagement and education around what we're doing and what we might be able to do in the future. So some of the resources that we need in order to increase our level of sophistication with this is we need a covered concrete pad, which we have temporarily fashioned out of a couple of shipping containers and a large metal hoop house. It's big enough to store a bunch of material. We need sorting bays because we've got all these different streams of material coming in. We need to organize this area, help us keep it clean and organized, and to manage. Front end loader and somebody to drive it around to turn the pile and monitor and move all of the different inputs around. we have already a screening system and people that know how to operate it. What that does is when we get the street sweepings, for example, we put it into this machine and it spins around and has different size holes in the thing, and it filters out the Gatorade bottles and soccer balls from the material that goes into a dumpster, and then all of the organics and fines go into different piles. Then those can be made and machines are not been handled separately. We have at our Springer facility, we have a dewatering collection system, so we don't have to consume, right? And you know, if we upsize this and go full scale, we're definitely going to need to manage water that's coming off of anything that we're holding onto that's either actively being composted or waiting to be composted. And we need some process monitoring equipment, temperature probes, other devices that can help us track, create spreadsheets, and do the required reporting from what's going on within these compost piles as they're cooking. So our project here, again, you have all of this information in the slides in the PDF that we uploaded. We've got a bunch of different things in here. Cost estimates for dewatering system and the temperature and moisture probes, pile turning. These are all estimates right now. We need to refine these numbers. If you include a 30% contingency in here, diverting all of those materials away from the landfill, if you remember, has been costing us, as we estimated, about $180,000 a year for a $63,000 or so investment, according to our estimates here. 2/3 reduction to save a bunch of money and create something that has that can have positive impact year over year. We are going to, because we have actually essentially a year under our belt now of not sending materials to a landfill, we can actually get into our systems and refine these numbers. And that's one of the next steps in this process, is to see how close we were to our engineers' estimate for these things, as we now have real data that we can. And so summarize, our proposal here for a new composting program will reduce waste to landfills, decrease greenhouse gas emissions, all while creating a valuable resource that we can use to support local communities, ecosystem, and our pump stations and beautiful water and resource recovery facilities. So with that, if there's any questions, comments, concerns, I'm here until 8 o'clock. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Here's apologies for arriving late, but
You're here right on time.
yeah, no, it isn't like that. Like a great idea. Today. Wonderful visuals and layout.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing.
I had a thing that was going on in my mind is. Now you guys will probably do some analysis on the kind of water fuels that you get from our sourcing kind of sample basically leaves and the sure this management gets that's more than what we can collect.
A little hard to hear you.
There's AC going on. so-
Yeah, there's like fans.
This will help.
You can yell, I won't take it personally.
No, I'm not really so want to talk about the plant and the station waste that you collect on street sweeping.
Yes.
Assuming that's a much smaller quantity compared to what waste management or these people collecting their black bins. I have a black bin that I fill up every other week. Why not just give it to them? Monetize that rather than going through all of this.
Good question, right? And we have more now financial analysis and other things to do with this, but they're charging a lot of money to bring that material to them. And it's, you know, it is essentially a landfill service, right? And some of those folks are providing. I don't know everything that goes on at waste management and some of these other locations, but it's getting just like the dam project. Every year that goes by, bringing things to a landfill gets more and more expensive. And we can do more than that.
They take the land.
Again, I'm not,
I think he may be talking about the yard debris ban,
Yard safety only.
which
Not.
I think a lot of those go to recology. Okay?
I mean,
But street sweepings, I think, are a bit of a different ballgame because of the tire residues and the other kinds of things that may
Yeah,
have
that's
to
the
be
separation. Is
specially
that-
disposed of.
That of after it's separated. Whatever they are planning to use for the composting and the rest of the flow. Volume that we're gonna be dealing with, is it worth investing in all of this? Just giving it to waste management.
okay. I think I'm following. So like waste management is the actual name of a company. And that's what I was thinking you.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
they manage the landfill. I was, oh, this is valuable material. We don't want to put it into a landfill, right? So, I don't live in Washington County. I don't know where your yard waste goes. I'm assuming it is Recology or one of these other places that are composting the material along with food waste and everything. But this is an eye towards building a very large regional facility that's processing street sweepings, leaf debris, wood waste, biochar, biosolids, and changing significantly how we are disposing of or managing organic materials. And we need all of these ingredients as part of that recipe.
I'm more this based on, yeah, if it's a pilot, we can probably take a look at what it's gonna do. The real story is behind, what does it mean in terms of effort, in terms of expansion, added effort, added expense. Break even, make money.
I think this is something that we can probably take back and do a deeper dive into, because also how does it compare with the folks that are doing the yard and food compost? Yeah.
Multnomah County also has a separate bin for food and compostable waste. They are doing something with that, or do we know how?
That stuff I know goes to most of that goes to Recology. So, yeah, they're managing large amounts of stuff, and they're doing yard waste and food waste. We have our own materials that we're generating through our operations that can be explored in this way. But yeah, there's more financial analysis and other things to do. You know, that's one aspect of it, right? Like the financial analysis is key. There's so many other potential benefits that are connected to evaluating the return on investment. That can't be the only thing we define.
That's what they mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Voice be heard.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking your question. Yeah.
Yes, my question, a naive question, where is your street sweeping being done and where are the leaves coming from? Why is that a Clean Water Services?
Yeah, good.
Where does that come from?
I may need some help from some of the folks in the peanut gallery here, but to my understanding, this is part of our MS4. Is that accurate? Yeah. So we're the street sweeping MS4 with our national alphabets.
Help us out here.
The street sweepings are part of the answer to your question is that we're doing street sweepings within our service district everywhere within the service district, but within the residential areas. We're not doing highways or like big industrial complexes. And then City of Beaverton and the other partner cities, they also have their own street sweeping and street sweepers. They're bringing a lot of that material to us sometimes. We're helping them process that stuff. So that's all part of our stormwater requirements.
Yeah, our treated as sweeping is largely urban and unincorporated. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what that says. It's right. Or that's what it was.
All of those key to keeping any of the waste within the leaves.
What varies, we're trying to. Well, we're doing it. To remove materials from getting into the storm sewers. Cities do it for that, but also for additional. Quality of life, safety, bikes, so what the cities do and what we do. Our sweeping programs are slightly different.
That helps.
Shannon,
did you have anything
I
else?
don't know. I honestly don't know the origins of the leaf collection program and how that came to be.
Well,
A part of our.
a part of this, I mean, this body a few years ago actually helped change a program we used to have where we swept up, we picked up leaves. Only in certain neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods were primarily neighborhoods we just heard a lot from. And so it was not an equitable program. We had expensive machinery that broke down a lot. There was a lot of reasons why it was not a good program. But we brought it to CWAC for a couple of years. We had a couple people on CWAC who lived in the community or the neighborhoods where we were picking up these leaves. And after, taking in all the data and asking questions and asking for more data, they made the recommendation that we stop that program. So stop picking up leaves and instead make more leaf drop-off locations. But yeah, to answer the other question about where do we sweep up leaves, it's unincorporated, as most jurisdictions do not own. And it's, I think, largely around flooding to avoid flooding where we have catch basins.
Cities have no idea. Yeah, I've been sure. Expect that from the city. 3 times over. Cities still have leaf pickup programs, but we've gone to drop-offs, which works actually.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so
Great program. I love it. I was surprised that there hasn't been something like this happening already. So this is a pilot project, right? And so it's been a year. Is that right?
more or less.
So do you have to convince someone to make sure this continues or, I mean, I don't know what the process is gonna be and what the challenges could be.
Question. I mean, as most of you probably know, we've been through some managerial changes. CWS. Still trying to figure out maybe who are our deciders for this as we go forward. But one of the things that we know that we need to do is same as any project that we would deliver on or a treatment plan. We need to give a business case, discuss the costs. What are options A, B, C, right? Maybe it is taking things to ecology, right? Like, we need to put everything on the table, come back with a proposal, present it to our leadership to get guidance and advice, put in the budget. Do the work that we know that we have to do in order to lay out the pathway or the framework. Moving beyond. That's gonna take us some time. Answer your question.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope it continues. And so I was just curious about what, or how long could it be that before they say, yes, we will have this as one of our programs.
I wish I could tell you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can tell you that everybody that's participating in this is on and contributing. We have funding coming from multiple different departments, helping funding and personal time helping to make this. This is something that we've started building at the staff level, bringing here and to leadership to say, hey, like, we're dealing with all of this stuff. We would like to propose that we start doing this. So, I think people have had an active interest in changing how we're managing these organic materials for a period of time. It's a lot of other competing priorities. And we're at the point here where we have developed this resource recovery division that are essentially tasked with trying to deliver those things. Have dedicated resources to help them. You have a question, then we'll go.
Joe, what's in the leaf that makes it something we've had to dispose of any other way than composting before? Is it?
I think it just can be
tired, right? Or
well, the leaves are
is it
just
so dirty?
the leaves are just from what people are bringing us from.
Yeah.
What they're making up of their.
And when we pick up in the.
Well, we have never combined these things until
Oh,
everything was being managed in 3 different linear, essentially parallel processes. We would gather the leaves and then they would go over that direction. We bring the street sweepings in and they go over to Eastern Oregon. We bring in the water quality facility, pruning, sticks and branches and logs and things. And that material would get chipped and it would be disposed of somewhere. So those were all being managed by different people who are all now part of this team. Up until this past spring, everything was being treated with this linear process, but now we have everything together. So the leaves, because it's all organic material, they were going to a farm or several farms because it was convenient. They can take them all.
That's close.
They wanted.
But the street sweepings have heavy metals and grits from tires that are toxic to salmon and things like that. So they have to be handled a little differently than a bag of clean leaves.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we have very specific places where we can or cannot use this material. You can use it now for a lot of things. We don't have to go through a composting process with the street sweepings. We can use that material for certain specific applications. But if we can mix with other ingredients and create a suitable composting product that has fewer contaminants in it, potentially have a wider array of beneficial uses of this too. That help?
Yeah.
Maybe just to put a finer point on Lakshmi's question. So are you looking for, from management, from the board, for approval to expand the program within this budget year? Or are you looking to put together a package to propose for the 26-27 budget? And that's the timeframe that you hope to expand the program to, like you were describing?
Good question. So there's a bunch of other people that are involved with this. What I would like to do is this group and others, I would like to see us put forth a budget request for the next fiscal year to develop that planning, that plans, right? Develop that document that we can then put it through. And we add that into following a multiple year CIP budget proposal. Build a facility and buy all the equipment and monitor it and request positions to help with it. One of the other things that we could look at is similar to like ecology or something that we could evaluate the opportunity of a public-private partnership where we have a private entity that is doing a compost facility for us. We're just bringing in the material. We have space, we have land. I feel like we have a lot of the ingredients to make all this happen, but yeah, that's at least the plan that I've pitched to my boss. Like, hey, I would like to get some money with our next budget request to develop that plan set for how we deliver on the larger facility.
I mean, that business case certainly sounds like something that CWAC would be a great organization to give feedback on before it's moved on to the board, if that's something that staff wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it starts here today to, share this with you and hear what you have to say, answer questions and develop that plan as the team that we are.
So this is just a request, great idea and great presentation. Once you've gone through your analysis of mistakes, financials, and all those things. Is it possible to bring a presentation back to this forum before do this in the budget committee and say, I want.
Absolutely. Yeah, like we could come back with whatever report we generate and share everything with you. Why not?
John, it sounds similar to what you described years ago.
Yeah, so
Made a change, so.
right, so charge CWAC with the responsibility of taking in the data, the information, you know, such as John's described and more. Request more data, things to help answer the questions that you have. For discussion, and then finally you make a recommendation.
Logic was finance is one aspect of it.
Yes, it is 100%. I agree.
Question on the street sweeping.
Yeah.
So we're street sweeping in the unincorporated areas. So in the winter, we have winter friction materials, sand, gravel, and cinders that gets collected. And you've binned it at a clean water services facility. Does that get recycled to county ops? Or do you just reuse it for clean water services purposes?
I don't know. I haven't heard anybody talking about recycling that, using it again, right? Like picking up the gravel that's that's thrown around when it's all snowy and icy. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I haven't heard of anybody saying that, but I can ask our field ops folks to see.
Yeah, circular opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other jurisdictions where it's the same agency doing it, they do that, but here they're separate agencies collecting. So I was curious whether it completes the circle back.
Yes. It's an interesting thing. I'm not sure, but I can see, I mean, if I think about when I've taken a shovel and dug into our compost pile, there's definitely like rocks and things that are in there that look suspiciously like.
Right after the snow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
John, in hindsight, Ryan Sangio, like, she was here.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff involves
Yeah.
Ryan and field ops, and been it a long time and could answer some of these, so.
Yeah, Brian and Gabe, but yeah, I'll ask and see. I don't think we're doing that, but I'll ask them. I'll ask them to we're running the machinery and helping to screen the material and all that stuff to see if there's anything.
Yeah, other questions for John? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Okay, next up is our invitation for public comment. We'll now welcome any members of the public who would like to provide public comment. Up to 2 minutes, and Katie will be your timekeeper.
Dale, Pete, can you hear me back there all right? Good. All right, I had a hard time back there, so I'll try to be a little loud. Last at the Clean Water Service Advisory Committee I said that Tracy gave a similar presentation to Washington County Board of Commissioners a couple of months ago. And I said, when are you going to give it here? And she did it today, so it was very important. The Washington County Commissioners are very knowledgeable about Clean Water Services budget. All the commissions are, especially Catherine Harrington. Catherine Harrington has spent more time in the budget of Clean Water Services than the regular budget. So she's extremely knowledgeable about the budget of Clean Water Services. So any budget member now that's volunteered to be on there, make sure you're working with the county commissioners and Kathy Harrington, because they're extremely knowledgeable about the budget. And the county hires federal lobbyists and state lobbyists, and they have their own legislative departments and work with Tracy. So they're going to be the first ones to know what's really happening through the Bureau of Reclamation budget. I may be uninformed or misinformed, but I think the Clean Water Service budget for salaries, for operations, for construction is funded by fees. And you're shaking your head, true, okay? So you're the most person knows the most. So it seems to me that as residential industrial developments happen, for instance, at River Road, where there's that 30 to 40 foot sewage that has to be just okay, you might want to take a look at development and how much Clean Water Services put in pump stations to make that development happen. At Jackson School Road, they already put a pump station in there. It takes a lot of energy to do pump stations, okay? So I have a couple more things to say and then I think I'm done. I think my time is up. And especially if the Bureau decides to reduce the Hag Lake to 75% maximum capacity. If that's true, then you really need to take a look at what you are okaying for development because you're going to be limited on water. Water is the critical factor. I just say that for you people, part of the budget.
So that's the operational side of service. And then going forward, that'll be based on rate development and forecast.
The other members of the public online or present? Announcements from Chief of Staff, Elizabeth, over to you.
Thank you, Chair Song. I will keep it short and sweet this evening. A hearty welcome again to our two new members of CWAC. You've made it through your first meeting. Congratulations. Thank you for folks coming to Central, our new location. We will be here next month as well. Folks who are here a little early, maybe we'll try and get a tour in so that you can see
Next month, but January. Oh, yeah, November.
Yeah.
I'm always month ahead.
Yeah. Shannon's helping to plan, so she's thinking on a different timescale. So in November, we will be here again, and we won't be meeting in December. So, next month is our last meeting of the year. Those are my announcements.
Great, thanks, Elizabeth. Hey, there being no further business this evening? Oh. Yes.
Good question, Elizabeth. What about replacement for Diane, the hiring process? Is there any news on that front?
Oh, we actually do have news on that front. Yesterday, the board named Rick Shanley as interim. So we had a 3-step process, acting, interim, and so Rick Shanley was our acting interim CEO / general manager. He's now our interim CEO / general manager. And we are working on the timeline for a new permanent leader. At this point, the timeline that I expect is hopefully by the end of the fiscal year. Or we'll make that decision.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
With that, CWAC is adjourned. Next meeting, as Elizabeth said, will be November 12th.
That's good.
Thank you, everyone, especially staff for staying late with us as always.
So, second order next year, the CEO will be in.
Great.
Want to make sure I'm.